Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond. My name is Frank Corsaro. I use he, him pronouns. And as a member of your board of directors, it is my privilege to serve this congregation that strives to be a multicultural, diverse, and inclusive community open to all faith traditions. Our mission here at First UU, as stated on the homepage of our website, is to grow in search of wisdom, care in support of community, and act in service of justice. But mere words cannot bring this covenant to life. It takes the collective efforts of all of us who have shared values and are committed to the worth and dignity of all persons, no exceptions. Our theme for February, as First UU celebrates Black History Month, is justice and equity. One of the ways we embody putting these words into action is by coming together to worship on Sundays, to be together in community and conversation and relationship. You, on this third Sunday of February in the year 2024, have chosen to be here. For that, I thank you and express my gratitude. Welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond.
Good morning. My name is Kirsten Fritz. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the ministerial intern here at First UU. Today, my worship associate is Elena Honeycutt. It is our tradition here at First UU to welcome our visitors. If you are a visitor this morning and you feel comfortable identifying yourself, please raise your hand and Jamie will bring the mic to you. And then please share your name and where you are visiting from. Any visitors in the room this morning? For real? Or if you are here for the first time and you feel shy, that is okay. We hope to meet you some other Sunday. So in that vein, going once? Nope? Okay. So please turn and greet your neighbor. Our call to worship this morning is by Katie Romano Griffin. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion, and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space, present the beloved companions beside you. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship.
This morning's chalice lighting is called The Struggle for Freedom. We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who've struggled for justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope. And now, please, can you rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing opening hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. Today's responsive reading is number 579, The Limits of Tyrants by Frederick Douglass. It is on the screen as well as 579 in the gray hymnal. I'll read the first line. Please read with me on every other line. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out what people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those who they oppress. So this is our Share the Plate, and I have just a note because Alicia Wright was unable to be here this morning. She said, due to transportation issues, we regret not being here today. We continue to be honored as your Black History Month recipient of Share the Plate. This organization is your donations will go directly to support Black and brown homeschooling families in the city of Richmond through our programming. Let us be your opportunity to give back directly to Black people who are taking control of their children's education and futures. And I believe there is a video that she wanted us to watch. If that's queued up and ready, could we possibly show?
It's been another wonderful month at Cultural Roots Co-op, where our young ones are being empowered with a love of learning and a strong connection to Black, brown, and indigenous cultures. Let's enjoy a look back at some of our learning adventures from October as we continue to explore who we are.
Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. You're blessed with it, baby, so marvelous. No one like you, just look around. Yeah, you're too strong to turn around. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are.
Beautiful baby, I love you, baby. Pray these words, may hug you, baby. Look into the mirror, say I love you daily. Remember your light when the world seems shady. You born with it, adorned with it. A gift to the world, gon' give it. Fearlessly made, no need to be afraid. Angels are with you, the path is laid. Waiting thoughts of you being a star. Truly you'll shine by seeing who you are. Reflections of you, reflections of me. Your beauty, more than any eyes can see.
Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. You're blessed with it, baby, so marvelous. No one like you, just look around. Yeah, you're too strong to turn around. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are.
We've learned so very much this October, and that wouldn't have been possible without our incredible teachers. Thank you. Also, a big thanks to our dedicated parents and our community partners. And of course to our leader, Mrs. Alicia, thanks for helping us continue to develop our cultural roots.
This is the prayer for While in the Struggle by Reverend Margalie Belizaire. Spirit of light and of love, spirit of resistance, spirit of generosity, that which serves as our consciousness in this work. What we do to dismantle white supremacy, to empower the marginalized, to insist that Black lives matter. We have been angered, we have been saddened, we have been pushed to the brink once more. We are also inspired and seem to be resolved to do better this time, to not simply get to the other side of this moment, but to get there morally healthier, to get to a safer space for Black bodies. Spirit, help us to understand that we each have a role in justice work, for our liberations are tied to one another's. Give us that clarity of mind to know what our individual part is in the struggle, that there are many ways to protest injustice. Help us to find our way and to commit to it. Spirits, we ask for guidance, send us strength and endurance. Help us to give our all to this and hold nothing back. For precious lives depend on it. We will be imperfect. Rest assured we will mess up over and over again, and we must do it anyway. May we summon the courage to tear down this system of injustice and get busy creating a world community with justice for all. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Please remain seated for our meditation hymn, number 155 in the gray hymnal, Circle Round for Freedom. Raise your hand if you have ever been on a committee or you have been a volunteer of any kind. Great. All right, raise your hand if you've done either volunteering or been on a committee for a really long time. Yeah, me too. And it is that shared experience that first piqued my interest in one of our Unitarian ancestors, Mary White Ovington. In his book, Universalists and Unitarians in America, John Buren describes Mary's work with the NAACP. Quote, "She served on the executive committee for 15 more years, holding together an interracial coalition of strong personalities and diverse ideologies." When I first read this, I thought, wow, I really could have used a Mary on some of the committees that I've been on in the past. It's hard enough to hold together a group with moderate personalities and similar ideologies. And it made me so curious about this woman from the early 20th century. What I learned is that Mary White Ovington was a Unitarian, a reformer, a suffragist, a socialist, a journalist, a novelist, and one of the co-founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So today I wanted to explore a little of Mary's life, her work for racial justice, and the ways it can inform our work for justice today. Before I begin, I do want to note that I'll read a few quotes from Mary's memoir that use outdated racial terms that we no longer use today, but just a few. Mary was born in Brooklyn, New York, just after the end of the Civil War. She was raised in what she called an abolition family. This was such an important part of her family identity that at the beginning of one of her memoirs, she lists their abolitionist credentials by listing the different Unitarian ministers that each generation sat under, is what they called it. And she described their ministers' complete devotion to the anti-slavery cause. Although she was raised in this passionately abolitionist family, those were stories from the recent past. They were not urgent concerns during her childhood. In her autobiography, Mary remembers, quote, "The economic depression of the Reconstruction monopolized men's emotions. At home, I never heard of any work for the emancipated slave. Even my minister took little interest. Slavery was ended. That was the great point." Her family took pride in their abolitionist roots, but they did not have personal relationships with Black families. For them, the abolitionist movement had won. End of story. So any limited understanding that Mary had about the lives and experience of Black people came from the stories of books, heroic figures like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and Henry Box Brown and Anthony Burns. And that made stories very important to Mary. The theme of expanding knowledge and consciousness through literature is really one of the great reoccurring themes of her life. Mary went to college at the Harvard Annex, later called Radcliffe College, but she had to leave school early when her father could no longer support her. She never married. Settlement work, which was not. They established settlement houses in poor white urban areas where middle-class volunteers would settle to help alleviate the poverty of their low-income neighbors. Settlements provided services such as daycare and English lessons and health care. So can you picture it? Here is Mary White Ovington, a young, handsome, middle-class white woman going to a part of the city she had never been before and encountering poverty for the first time. She describes the sickly sweet smell of the sugar refineries, the smoke from the large looming factories. During her tour of the apartment building, Mary met a young woman who told her, quote, "Of conditions in our own city of which I was utterly ignorant. I felt humiliated." So here we have Mary experiencing real injustice, not just in stories, not just in an idealistic sermon, but in person, in her own hometown. She felt embarrassed by her own ignorance, by what we might call her privilege today. And that really resonated with me. At the same time, Mary was grateful to have this insider information, and she took several new steps to use this new knowledge. First, she took a job at the Greenpoint settlement in northern Brooklyn. Second, she made a commitment to share what she had learned with others. For the rest of her life, Mary strove to share this type of insider knowledge to broaden the understanding of her peers. Mary's awareness of racial issues opened gradually as she encountered some of her literary heroes in person, such as Frederick Douglass. In 1903, Mary heard Booker T. Washington speak at the Social Reform Club in Manhattan. Quote, "I learned that there was a Negro problem in my city. I had honestly never thought of it. That he suffered more from poverty, from segregation, from prejudice than any other race in the city was a new idea to me," end quote. That same year, Mary read W.E.B. Du Bois's book, The Souls of Black Folk, and began corresponding with him, which led to more than 30 years of close friendship. Once she knew there was a problem, she wanted to learn more, to understand, and she wanted to talk to the people who were directly impacted. Inspired by these encounters, Mary took the justice model that she knew, the settlement houses, and tried to apply it to racial justice. She wanted to start a settlement in a Black neighborhood that would mix both economic classes and races. But before they would go along with her ideas, the leaders of the Greenwich House settlement wanted more information. They commissioned Mary to do a study of the status of Blacks in New York City. To gather data for her study, Mary got letters of introduction from Washington and Du Bois. She interviewed Black businessmen, professionals from social service organizations, social workers, nurses, and clergy, pretty much anyone she could get to talk to her. In 1911, Mary published the results of her study in a book titled Half a Man, The Status of the Negro in New York. Despite her efforts, Mary was not able to raise enough funds to start her own settlement house in a Black neighborhood, so she moved there on her own. In the early 1900s, there were a number of anti-Black riots in cities like New York, Evansville, Atlanta, and Springfield. As the home of Abraham Lincoln, the race riots in Springfield garnered extensive press coverage and national attention. After reading an article about the Springfield riots, Mary asked the article's author, William English Walling, to meet with her to discuss the issue. They met with a couple of friends over lunch, and they discussed holding a conference to talk more about, quote, the Negro status in the United States. They formed a small committee and published what they called a call to hold a conference, quote, for the discussion of present evils, the voicing of protest, and the renewal of the struggle for civil and political liberty. They had it signed by 53 people of national reputation. It's interesting to note that Mary was a friend or colleague of all 53 of the people who signed the document. So at that first conference of what would become the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, they adopted a platform that was radical for its time. Abolition of all forced segregation, equal educational opportunities, advantages for colored and white, enfranchisement of the Negro, enforcement of the 14th and 15th Amendments. Mary was the author of many of the NAACP's early histories, but she left the depth of her own role out of the narrative. She served the NAACP from its founding in 1910 until 1947. John Hayes Holmes, a prominent Unitarian, praised Mary, quote, noting that she assumed voluntarily in her one person the duties of all the officials we had: director, secretary, treasurer, and publicity agent. With superb devotion and ability, she carried the work to a point where it must have a paid and trained staff if it were really to be the potent force of which we dreamed. Then, with infinite grace, she stepped down that others might follow on. So that sounds like good leadership succession planning to me. Behind the scenes at the NAACP, Mary smoothed ruffled egos and mediated between strong personalities like Du Bois. How did she do that? Her NAACP colleague, Walter White, implied that some of Mary's effectiveness came from her ability to be both unassuming and disarming. Quote, her delicately pale blue eyes, her placid and sensitive face, and her beautifully tailored pastel clothes leave breathless and defenseless those who meet her for the first time. It's quite the description. Her biographer, Carolyn Wedden, thinks Mary used her lack of prominence strategically to get things done. Much of Mary's work was relational: meetings, correspondence, organizing, interviews. As a journalist, Mary wanted to write about things that took shape in the world, mostly reporting on the accomplishments that she witnessed and people that she met. In contrast, her fiction explored her perceptions of the Black experience. She claimed that seeds from conversations inspired much of her fiction. Mary believed so strongly that Black people, especially children, needed to see themselves in literature that she tried to fill that void herself. In the preface of her novel Hazel, she explains, quote, "I thought for some time that the colored children in the United States might also like to have their intimate books telling happenings that were like their own. So out of my years of experience among these small friends, I have written this story," end quote. Publishers did not think that her first book, Hazel, would sell, but Mary believed in it, and she paid to publish it herself. After Hazel, this middle-class white woman went on to produce and edit some of the first literature published for Black children. For me, there is tension here between appreciation and appropriation. On one hand, Mary's choice to write Black-centered literature herself is presumptive and paternalistic. On the other hand, her privileged access to publishers and funding allowed her to champion better representation. In 1947, at the age of 82, Mary resigned from the NAACP board after 38 years of service, mostly due to health concerns. She died 4 years later, and her memorial service was held at the Unitarian Community Church in New York City. So why does Mary White Ovington's story matter? She was not and is not very well known. Instead, Mary was more like many of us. She was a volunteer, a worker bee, quietly, steadily working to make things better. Mary is an excellent example of what is possible with determination and cooperation. Once she knew that there was a problem, she wanted to learn more, to understand. She asked questions and she listened to the people directly impacted. She built relationships with people from many different walks of life. And in every way she could, Mary tried to share what she learned, to broaden people's horizons, to amplify the voices of the marginalized. These are not huge things. These are all things that each of us can do in our own lives. Now, I'm a little bit embarrassed to confess that prior to learning about Mary, I knew that Unitarians and Universalists took part in the abolition movement and in the civil rights movement. But I did not know whether our traditions participated in racial justice during the years between those two movements. For me, Mary and the founding of the NAACP is one of the stones that help bridge that gap in UU history and demonstrates that racial justice work has been a long-standing part of our tradition and our heritage. Mary's story shows how far our work for racial justice has evolved from abolition to Black Lives Matter. And Mary's story reminds us that we cannot rest on our laurels like the abolitionists did after the Civil War. We cannot consider the work done. Like Mary, we have to keep taking the next step, keep working for justice until all of us are free.
The singers want to make sure that you hear the words from Langston Hughes' poem. I dream a world where man no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth and every man is free. Where wretchedness will have its head, and joy, like a pearl, attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream my world.
Elena, will you please extinguish our chalice? This is benediction is Remembering Our Spiritual Courageous Ancestors by Rise Williams. Remembering our spiritual, courageous ancestors who forsook oppression with security to gain freedom with opportunity. May we go forth to master ourselves by accepting duty with responsibility, by showing balance in our judgments, and by having breadth of vision in our deliberations. May we be exemplars of that spirit, moving forward with conviction and commitment, with unity and without uniformity, with brotherhood and sisterhood and siblinghood, to serve the truth that sets us free. Amen, and blessed be. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 1017 from the Teal Hymnal, Building a New Way.